Hello everyone, it is Joe here from Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon, and today we are checking out Vileplume Box. This is a deck that popped up at Worlds, thanks to Ninja Boy being such a cool, crazy card, and the idea of the deck is to lock your opponent of items and also stop your opponent doing pretty much any damage to you, because we have a lot of different wall type Pokemon that basically stop your opponent attacking you for certain different types of Pokemon. If it's basics, you have Jolteon. If it's EXs, you have Regice. If it's evolutions, you have Glaceon. That's basically how the deck functions. And we're just going to try and make it so that the opponent can't draw into their outs if they have any in the first place. And we're just going to keep chugging away, poking for 70 damage a turn, but keeping the pressure on and just really disrupting your opponent. So it actually did quite well. It came second at Orlando Regionals, a list very similar to this. I believe it's only like 2 or 3 cards different. So I'll talk about the changes I make personally, and talk about other options as well for the deck. So let's jump straight into it. First of all, we have a 3-3-3 line of the Vileplume. It's a huge aspect of the deck. This is what provides the item lock. Once we get into the stage 2, of course, we are playing the full 4 count of 4 Forest of Giant Plants. So that we can evolve up in the first turn of the game. That's what we look to do, because irritating pollen means that each player can't play any item cards from their hand. So really the only items we play in here are like ball search cards and trainer's mails. So all we're trying to do is get to the Vileplume turn 1 with our items, and then, you know, we don't play that many total items, so we don't really feel too disrupted by this ability on our side. It's more the opponent that's going to have the headache here. We have a retreat cost of 3, so we are playing Manaphy EX, and we're also playing a single copy of Olympia in here to try and mitigate that a little bit. But overall, Vileplume is just a really good ability, and it's what makes this deck function, because we have to shut off things like VS Seeker. If people are playing a single copy of Pokemon Ranger, very few decks will play more than a single copy, if any. We also stop things like Escape Rope, which are also common outs to the things like Jolteon, Glaceon and Regice, because it gusts them to the bench, and that's awkward because it can reset their ability. People can gust with a Escape Rope and then Lysandre back up the target to KO it, and that's what we don't want to happen. So we have Vileplume to stop all these things, so that our walls become even more annoying to deal with. So let's look at some of these. The flagship Pokemon really are the 2 ofs, the Regice, the Glaceon and the Jolteon. That's why you can see the basic energy of choice is going to be water energy. I think one of the most used ones is actually the Regice. It has 2 quite handy attacks. First of all, Ice Beam for Water Colorless just does 30. You can flip a coin and get paralysis on your opponent. Combined with Item Lock again, because we're shutting off things like Switch, VS Seeker for cards like Olympia. If we do flip that heads, we can sometimes get paralysis. But the main attack is obviously the second one, Resistance Blizzard, dealing 70 damage for a water and 2 colorless energies, preventing all effects of attacks, including the damage done to this Pokemon by Pokemon EXs. And this is really important because there are Megas in format, so the Jolteon and the Glaceon aren't good enough, because if you're attacking with Jolteon, they'll just Mega Evolve and hit you. If you're attacking with Glaceon, they can try and use their lower form. So Regice covers both bases by being just EXs. And that really is a large portion of the format right now, so it's pretty much our main attacker in some circumstances. Next up we have the Glaceon. This still has the water cost and typing, so that's pretty helpful. 170 HP EX with Second Bite, which is a handy attack also. For water colorless, we do 20 plus 10 more for each counter already on your opponent's active. Because our damage cap is usually 70 on all of our dudes, this could help finish things off if we're trying to close out a game, if people are trying to retreat around us and stuff. So yeah, Second Bite can finish things off quite tastily. But again, Crystal Ray is the main reason it's in the list. Again, for just a water and 2 colorless, we do 70. And during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from evolutions. Bear in mind, Regice is effects as well as damage, but the Jolteon and the Glaceon are just the damage only, so effects do still go through on these guys, so you do have to bear that in mind. But yeah, preventing this is pretty handy to us. Next up we have the 2 Jolteon EX. Jolteon's great in this deck because first of all it has free retreat, so it's a great lead Pokemon for this deck. Gives us flexibility and good options. It has just 160 HP, which is low, but the idea is that we're never getting hurt by damage, so it doesn't really come into effect too often. Swift for a lightning energy just deals 30, isn't affected by any weakness, resistance, or any other effects, so that's not a bad little bit of poke damage before we get our second attack, which is again the main reason we play this card, going, which again has the similar attack cost of lightning and 2 colorless, so we are playing the rainbow energy to get this going. We deal 70 damage and we prevent all damage done to this Pokemon from basic Pokemon. So we're covered from basics, evolutions, and all EX Pokemon. And we're just going to basically say to our opponent, do you have the answers to get around this? Mainly Pokemon range is the big one people look for to get over us. If not, we're just going to try and win the game just by proking 70 a turn. Jolteon EX is actually really important in here because it's got lightning typing as well. There are some times when you're using the Regice or the Glaceon where people are just going to Sky Return bounce you. So we can either retreat into the Jolteon, or we can Ninja Boy into Jolteon, and we can just KO a Shaymin and take an easy 2 prizes once we've set up enough energy around our board. Because otherwise Sky Return loop would be really awkward for this deck. It means that you can't just play like just pure water energy and the Regice and Glaceon on their own. You really do need this Jolteon, in my opinion, as a 2 count. I think is great. Let's look at some one-ofs. One-of, which is actually really important, is the Manaphy EX. With that ability Aqua Tube, meaning that anything with a water energy attached has no retreat costs. So because we've lost AZ with the rotation, our biggest means of retreating is going to be Olympia, which we only play a one-of. So there's a lot of burden on getting Manaphy EX out in this deck. We have 6 energy that we can attach to give ourselves freedom of movement. So in theory, it means that we're not going to be stalled quite often. We can just attach 1 energy to the 3 energy retreat cost Vileplume to get ourselves out of there. So hopefully stall isn't an issue. Obviously you can prize Manaphy, that is awkward, but I don't really feel we have space for a second one. If it is going to be a space, I'd just play extra Olympias anyway, because I feel it's a little bit safer. If all else fails, you have the one of Olympia, or you can just manually retreat, because we do play a total of 10 energy. It's not like in Vespivile where you're limited to just 4 DCE, and like the stall just completely wrecks you. The stall hurts this deck, of course, but it's not the be-all and end-all, unless they spam it somehow. So yeah, the one of Manaphy makes it a little bit nicer for us. We can move between our Regice into the other things when necessary, so that's also pretty cool. We do have one Magearna EX in here for that Mystic Heart ability, preventing all effects of your opponent's attacks except damage done to each of your Pokemon that has any metal energy attached. So whenever we have a rainbow on, Magearna is protecting our Pokemon. This actually really helps against Jirachi promo. We're playing one ourselves, but you can see 8 of our 10 energy are all specials, so Magearna protecting us from Stardust is going to be really, really important. There's a few other attacks that can sometimes remove energy, and Magearna is going to help protect us from those sorts of things, as well as being hit with like Bubble or Moonless Madness, these sorts of attacks, which some people will try and use to stop us using our Stally attack for a turn. Magearna is going to prevent those things, those effects of attacks, so that's pretty handy to us. Next up we have the one of Jirachi promo. Jirachi has the single energy cost Stardust for 10, discarding a special energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. If you do, prevent all effects of attacks, including damage done to this Pokemon during your opponent's next turn. This is a really, really big card in this deck because you can see in the weaknesses, Chaos Wheel is horrendous for us. If they get a Giratina going and we don't have enough energy on the board at that point in the game, we can't attack at all unless we have basic energy to attach, and we only play 2 in here. So we have to basically use Jirachi to get rid of the double dragons so that maybe they miss a turn of Chaos Wheel, and then we can attach a special for the turn and hopefully get more attackers going. And basically with the one of Jirachi, we can keep Giratina in check a little bit better. That's the idea at least. And we also have one Mew EX. Mew is a really nice card to have in here. It gives us another typing that we can have weakness on, which is interesting. But it also just means that we can effectively present the threat of all of these at once, because if they're all chilling on the bench, we just have the Mew in the active attacking. It can choose whichever attack that we want, so it's pretty cool. And of course, with Rainbow Energy, you can even sometimes look to copy some of your opponent's attacks. It's a very, very versatile, as the ability suggests, Pokemon. The ability allows this Pokemon to use the attacks of any Pokemon in play, both yours and your opponent's, as long as you have the energy to use that attack. So with the Rainbow, we actually have quite a few options to sometimes steal opponents' attacks. If it's something like Y Cyclone, you can recover energy, like you can put it around your board and stuff like that. So that sometimes can be an interesting option. We do also have the attack replace, moving as many energy attached to your Pokemon as you like to your other Pokemon in any way you like. It's going to be rare that you'll use this, but if you're really in a pinch to help out with the Aqua Tube, we can sort of move energy around to then give ourselves free retreat on some of our dudes, and maybe if there's one EX that's really damaged or something, we can try and move the energy around, but more or less you're just going to be copying your own Stally Wally Pokemon with the Mew, so it's a pretty cool option in here. Rounding off the Pokemon, we just have 3 Shaymin EX. It's going to help us set up in the early turns, draw as much as we can because it's a difficult combo to get the Vileplume, and this is nothing like Vespiquen and Vileplume. We motor through far less cards because we only really have Ultra Ball, Male, and the 2 other Ball Search cards, Heavy Ball and Level Ball, to help us get to the Vileplume. So it's a lot more difficult to find this combo off, but the 3 Shaymin are going to help us give ourselves a chance, basically, to do it. At the same time, we do have DC for Sky Return bouncing of our own, so if, again, like I was saying, people will try and Sky Return bounce if we're just using Regice or Glaceon. Maybe you start Sky Return bouncing and then you're both doing nothing for a while, because that's also fairly relevant. It basically forces your opponent to then find an answer. As long as you have enough deck size, of course, it's still an option for you. So yeah, good to bear in mind. Onto the items now. We are playing a single copy of Heavy Ball. Heavy Ball allows us to find a Pokemon with a 3 retreat cost or more and put it into the hand. So this is going to find us either Vileplume or Regice. Regice is often the main attacker in so many situations, so it's fine to find the Regice, but also it's a great out for the Vileplume. This is better than just playing like a 4th Vileplume, because first of all it means it would imbalance the whole Pokemon line, but also because we're playing Trainers Males, it gives us a great way to try and dig out that Vileplume specifically once we've already found our lower pieces. To follow on from that, we are playing 3 Level Ball. Level Ball can find us Oddish and Gloom, so it's quite versatile, as well as sometimes finding Jirachi if it's really clutch. If you know you're going to play against a player with Giratina, if it's like a Dark Tina deck or something, you can search out the Jirachi early on, which again can be pretty handy. So I like the 3 count in my opinion. Next up, we are just playing the 4 Trainers Mail. Really versatile, helpful card in this deck. It's going to help us dig for Forest if we need it, Ball Search cards, or just a supporter for the turn. Very handy stuff. From there, just the 4 Ultra Ball. This is going to help dig for Shaymin, as well as any other attacker that we need throughout the game. Bear in mind, you can only really use this turn 1 as long as you're getting your strategy off effectively. That's kind of why we have the Ninja Boys in here, because they act as like a pseudo search card themselves. Onto the supporters, the one of Olympia. I think there's too many situations where you're too reliant on Manaphy. There'll be times if you're being stalled in the early turns, if you have to attach to something just to retreat it, it's an extra turn that you're not getting your attack going. So Olympia can help bail us out in those situations just to be a bit speedier getting our lock going, like our full lock established, the ability lock, the item lock and the attack lock. That's kind of the idea that Olympia can do. Also, it just relieves a bit of pressure again if Manaphy is prized or KO'd or whatever else, if we just couldn't search it out. It's a bit of extra help, I think, that this deck does quite appreciate. I just feel a lot safer having a single copy in here than not having it. A couple of the 2-ofs, Lysandre, so that we can pick off things. We can Lysandre Shaymins for easy prizes with Jolteon, or we can just finish things off that we've poked a couple of times with our other attacks, because we're never doing big enough damage to one-hit KO unless it's a non-EX, so Lysandre's going to be helpful there. Additionally, because we are item locking ourselves, if the opponent's having to run through their resources, we can Lysandre stall sometimes for games. That's also a very valid and viable option. We do have 2 Ninja Boy. This is really the cornerstone of the deck as well. You get to choose a basic Pokemon in play, search your deck for a basic Pokemon, and then switch it, and that's pretty awesome. All the effects and stuff stay on, but it means that we are able to flood the board of Shaymins turn 1 and still effectively have enough bench space for our attackers, because then later on down the line we can just Ninja Boy that Shaymin, turn it into something like Jolteon or Mew or even Manaphy EX. All of these are very valid targets, so it really solves the issue that this deck would otherwise have when we're trying to be versatile with all these attackers. We simply don't have the bench space when turn 1 we sometimes have to commit 2 or 3 Shaymin just to get the combo working. Ninja Boy helps out in that regard. Also, it means if you start with an awkward starter, you can maybe Ninja Boy it turn 2 to then change it into the one that you need. So that's pretty handy stuff. We are playing a 3 count of N. N is really helpful in here to shuffle draw and just hopefully refresh the hand. Stops us decking out as well sometimes, so very versatile card. I know Shemansky's list played 4. I'm happier with the 3 count, and I've bumped a level ball up because I just feel it's really important. I have had a noticeable change in the amount of times I can get the Vileplume just by having more access to level ball early on, because you can obviously only play 1 supporter per turn. If you lower your total supporter count, it means maybe you're drawing into them a bit less, which is sometimes a bad thing if it's your opening hand, but if you're starting to get rolling with stuff like Shaymin, it's 1 less dead card in the hand, and it's 1 more insta-play card, so then you're effectively motoring plenty more cards through your deck with Shaymin. So there's a debate to your count of N. I could see it being 4. At the moment, I'm happy enough with the 3 count, but I don't think I'll go any lower than that. From there, we're still playing the 4 Sycamore. Turn 1, it's the most aggressive supporter we can see. It's kind of painful discarding some energy at times, but most of the time you're fairly content to just Sycamore, get going, cross your fingers for that Vileplume. That's what the whole deck is based around. Like I said earlier on, 4 Forested Giant Plants, we just have to see this early to get the combo pieces going. And then the energy are all self-explanatory. The 4 DCE, the 4 Rainbow I've mentioned a lot, so that we can attack with all of our dudes. And the 2 Water because it gives us access with Manaphy for retreat, and also 4 of our main attackers are water type, or their energy cost is water at least, so it makes a lot of sense. So that is the deck. There's a few options that you could play in here. Obviously, you're a box style deck, so there's a whole wide range of attackers you could choose for different situations. But here are some popular ones. Lugia EX is a popular one. It's using just those double colorless energy costs, so it's fairly easy to get going. There's also the debate around having Yveltal EX, because this was used in Worlds when Trevenant was a bit more popular for covering weakness. But also Evil Ball, again, it can just finish games that little bit quicker if you've loaded up a bunch of energy. Or you can Y-Cyclone to sometimes conserve energy if there's nothing that you can do. Like if there are certain decks that you can't just wall against. Like if it's a deck that has, for example, a Yveltal deck that plays Zoroark. They have an evolution and they have multiple basics and non-EX Pokemon that they can all attack with at once. So maybe something like Yveltal EX keeps... If you keep Y-Cycloning, you can keep enough energy around the board to still do okay. I think it's a little bit niche right now, but it's obviously a great attacker, and we're playing the Rainbow Energy anyway, so heck, why not? A couple other Pokemon, there's going to be Trevenant EX. This is only if Greninja gets more and more popular. This is a pretty useful card for the Wood Blast, doing 50 and 20 more for each grass attached, so we do 70 with 1 Rainbow Energy on. If we put 2 Rainbows on, we're doing 90, which KOs even Greninja Break, so that could be really good just for plowing through those. And it also does have the Dark Forest attack, which again gives us the stall option. For just 1 grass, we do 20 and prevent retreat. If we're preventing items and retreat at the same time, the opponent's really stuck for things to do. We can stall something like a Hooper in the active for a number of turns until basically we knock it out. And that's a very viable strategy for you. I've spelled that wrong. Beedrill EX is not out yet. I believe it's not legal. It's out in the UK, but I believe it's actually later in the US, which is like the first time I've heard products coming out here before the US. But Double Scrapper is an option for you. You get to discard 2 tools attached to your opponent's Pokemon. This can help get rid of Float Stones on Trubbish and Garbodor, because right now, if we're up against Garbodor decks, they get turn 1 Trubbish Float. We can't do anything unless we Lysandre KO the Trubbish. Normally they're just going to get the lockup and we don't. We're sad. Then we just have to hope that our actual attacks are enough and we hope they don't play Ranger, basically. But yeah, it's pretty sad when we go up against Trubbish Float. Beedrill can save us in those sorts of situations. Final shout out to Bunnelby. Bunnelby could be a one-of. I think really we just don't have the bench space or anything, but it can recover resources. We've seen it in previous Vileplume lists. I think if you're playing like a heavy Acrobike focus, Bunnelby could be useful for recovering certain cards like Olympia. But this isn't an Acrobike focus and I'll talk about that now. We are not playing any Acrobike. For the Vespival players, Acrobike was like a staple 3 or 4 of. We're not playing any in here, really because there's too many painful discards. We're not as fast as Vespiquen and Vileplume. They could win in like 3 or 4 turns, so you didn't mind going down to like 10 card decks. Here, because we only prod for 70, it takes us a lot of turns to win the game. It's a slow grind. Even if we are just draw, announcing attack, passing, basically, it takes a while for our damage to rack up and actually take 6 prizes. So Acrobike doesn't really lend itself to this kind of deck. Even as like a 2 or 3 count, I think that can sometimes be risky. You can lose important resources, and when we're not playing Bunnelby, it doesn't make much sense for me. But that's really going to be it for the item cards that I can think of. Fighting Furybout is a card that I just don't see the space for, although it could sometimes be useful. The idea of the deck is that you don't receive damage in the first place, so there's no real point to increase your HP. But yeah, that's a discussion for another day, I think. It makes sense in things like Vileplume Tina, but that's about it. So we'll jump into the ladder and hope to find some good games. Okie dokie. We win the coin flip, and that is a huge thing about this deck. As long as you can get the turn 1, the coin flip can be huge. This is a pretty gross hand, but we have a supporter and an Ultra Ball, so I can't be too unhappy about this. A couple of painful discards early on, but that's part of the deck. And looks like we're up against some sort of dark variant. Oftentimes it's going to be Darkrai, Giratina, right? That's one of the most popular ones. Going to kick off with an Ultra Ball. I think I'm just going to get rid of 2 energy here. I'd rather keep the Ninja Boy around, because I'm probably going to want to Ninja Boy this Shaymin EX. Maybe not this turn, but down the line. So we already have the N, so I'm happy enough to just attach and Shaymin up for 4 cards and see what we can do with that. See if we can get something like Level Ball or Oddish. Looks like we just find Jolteon. We actually do have the turn 1, amazingly. We can just Ninja Boy the benched Shaymin, get Oddish, then just go Gloom Plume. I think that's absolutely fine. Miraculous. We did it. Just gonna have a quick scout for the deck. We've prized 1 Oddish. Manaphy is in here. Okay, not too bad. We have quite a decent amount of energy as well. So, turn 1 Vileplume. Not bad. And we have 2 supporters for next turn. Again, also not bad. Let's see what the opponent can do. There is Trubbish, bit late for that, unless they play Hex Maniac as well. Or they can somehow KO the Vileplume at some point during the game. We've seen attachment and just a pass. Glaceon, not very useful. Could put it down just to not draw into it. I think because we have a ridiculous amount of bench space, it's not too bad. It can also be a Ninja Boy target later on. We end, unfortunately, we miss all energy. I could fairly comfortably just Sky Return here. Because it looks like a Ninja Boy is not really on the cards. 1, 2, 3, 4. We can get like 1 card from Shaymin, 2 cards, sorry. That could be fine. Just an attachment is really all we want this turn. Doesn't look like we get that. So I'm just going to Sky Return into 1 Jolteon, because then I'll start attaching to the other one. That's the idea. Also, it frees up a bench space for us. Okay. We see a second attachment to Darkrai. And just Dark Pulse for 60. So we pick up a second Double Colorless, which isn't too helpful. I'm just going to attach to Jolteon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's no point playing any card because we'll never get more from Shaymin. So we can just pass. Now they have to find Giratina Double Dragon if they want to get the KO here. Just looks like an attachment from the hand of a basic dark, so we're left with 20 on the Jolteon. Pick up Trainer's Mail, which obviously we can't use. So I think this is just retreat into Shaymin. I may as well just do some Sky Return bouncing, get some damage in. It forces them to have an extra energy this turn. Yep, just the Dark Pulse for 80. More than an extra energy. They need like a Double Dragon. There is the Rainbow. So, all we got to do is Olympia. Attach that Rainbow and start announcing Flash Ray. That's the idea. And it's a pretty good one. When you get turn 1 Plume, the opponent has struggled to get anything going, and we do just see the concede. So that's one win for Plume Box because the dream happened. I really don't think this is more than like 40% turn 1 Plume in my testing. But when it happens, this deck can be pretty gross to play against, so not bad, not bad. Let's see if it can happen again. If it does, who knows? So just searching for an opponent, taking a while for some reason. People seem to have better things to do than play PTCGO. I can't believe that. Doesn't make sense. Here we go. Right, Hyper Puff. Playing a Water Psychic deck. Don't really know what that is. Water Psychic, huh? We get to go first again. Oh boy. And we have Magearna as our lead. Don't need to bench the Oddish just yet, in case we top deck something that drastically changes it. And we see Meowstic, so this is Gyarados. We're going to level ball, and we're going to find ourselves Gloom on the off chance that we can get Forest from this Trainer's Mail. We do have our Glaceons, which are obviously very important in this matchup. Going to check out a couple of other things. 2 Ninja Boys, only 3 Forest, and we've prized 2 DCEs. Okay, let's see if we can get a Forest. If we are very lucky. No Forest, but Ultra Ball is also a great pickup. So Oddish can come down. Simply because we've prized so many DC, I might just commit it to the active and discard the water energy. This means that we kind of need the Ninja Boy a little bit more next turn. If I attach the water, it's playing into Manaphy, and I think this is slightly better. I'm going to choose to get rid of the Vileplume. And we'll just grab Shaymin EX here. We do find Glaceon and Manaphy. We do have other Glooms in deck, so I'm pretty content to just Sycamore here. Keep the bench slot open for Shaymin EX. And again, it's whether or not we can find ourselves Forest. We'll grab the Gloom preemptively. And the Dream? No Dream. We can Ultra Ball away Jirachi and Mew though, to dig for Shaymin. Okay, couple more chances for the Dream. Mew not very important. Jirachi could be important in this matchup, but the idea is if we if we just get the setup going, it's really difficult for Gyarados to actually get set up on them on their own. So 2 draws to try and hit the forest. No dice, so we'll just pass. There's the Team Aqua secret base, and just a Sycamore straight off the bat. Having to get rid of... Wow, that's a lot of secret base going into the discard. That's really good for us. So yeah, Dive Ball for the Magikarp. That gets played. Second Dive Ball for another Magikarp. No surprises here. Again, getting benched. There's Floatstone for the Meowstic. And we are going to see Shadow Ear to put 1 counter onto Glaceon. So over time, they could Shadow Ear to win the game. Forest very next card, typical. Okay, I think I want to attach to Magearna here. And we'll just do Soul Blaster this turn. Not going to play the end because we still have an energy in hand, and that's really all we need. So we'll get the cheeky 120 in. Next turn we just do 60, but that's still enough to carry the Meowstic. So we'll see what the opponent can come up with. There's the Gyarados, and there's a Sycamore. Having to get rid of a Ranger is great for us. There's DCE. There's Shadow Ear once again. Moving a counter onto the Glaceon, no surprises. And in comes Gyarados, and we see full retaliation, just 490. We actually pick up Sycamore, which is better than the end here, I think. Let's attach to Glaceon, and we'll just Sycamore. Definitely have the option to free retreat here. I do want to take that option actually, because we have the Olympia in hand. So I'm just going to retreat to Shaymin and pass. They have to find their final stadium and Magikarp to get a KO here. If not, we have the Olympia. Well, we're getting end now, but we had the Olympia and the Water Energy to use Manaphy, so either way we could still find DCE to Sky Return. But no, just lots of supporters. There is the stadium. Oh wow, there's a Magikarp as well, so full retaliation actually does get the KO. Very scary stuff. The worst thing here is that we drew into our other Glaceon, right? Because it means that we can't Ninja Boy Magearna. Now, that's a problem. You can still promote Magearna though, just because of the Rainbow Energy. Picking up Water Energy is not great here. I think our safest bet here is just going for bench, attach, N. And then just Soul Blaster. Going down a bunch of prizes, but from then on we can just win the Crystal Ray War. I think this is safest. Take the 2 counters from the stadium. Alternative is to Ninja Boy into Jolteon and get a KO here. That could be fine, because I know I have 2 DCE prized. So that could be fine. Let's go for that line, I think. A little bit more aggressive. In the hopes that we can pluck DCE out of our prizes. Just the forest. That's still an important piece. The opponent needs DCE Gyarados. We do see a Lysandre. And the Shadow Ear is going to move a counter onto this Jolteon. And it's over to us. Gonna put the forest in. Just gonna go for Sycamore here. Don't want to waste time because I do want to deal with this Meowstic. We do find Rainbow Energy. So we'll just go for the Flash Ray. Taking 2 prizes again, hoping to find Double Colorless Energy. Still hiding from us. In comes Magikarp. DC onto the bench now. And we see the Scoop. I don't think they were too far away there. I mean, obviously they just have to pass Ico another Magikarp, then they're sort of out of damage. So I guess as long as they don't have the Gyarados that turn, I'm in good shape. But yeah, that was a pretty close game. We're able to pick up some free Gothitels. Hooray for us. So we'll get one more game in. And hopefully it's a good one. 2 wins so far. Both times we've gone first. And we got Vileplume in one of the games. And again we win the coin flip. Wow, the amount of times I can win coin flips. I should probably play a Vileplume variant, right? Oh, it's Freddy. Cool. We will lead with Manaphy. He may not be as happy when he sees our list, but I know for a fact that he's been playing Warlord for a while, and that would be scary for me. Yeah, it looks like we're up against Wales. Okay, how do I beat Warlord? I do such little amount of damage. I need to get Vileplume up. Definitely. Definitely Vileplume. That's 100%. Have I prized every piece? No, okay. What's my best attacker? I think it's Glaceon. Yeah, Glaceon's my best attacker in this matchup. Because Second Bite racks up on all their whales. I'm just going to pluck Oddish out the deck. Don't need this. Magearna's just a bench sitter. Okay, we're going to attach to Manaphy. Set up for 2. Trainer's Mail. Forest is great. This is a perfect Sycamore as well. It's rare that you get such a clean Sycamore with this deck. Gloom, but no Plume. Next turn we can at least start threatening a KO. Okay. The most unfortunate thing is that he can Flare Grunt if he plays Flare Grunt. Obviously he plays Crushing and Enhanced Hammers as well. So I think there's not a huge amount of reason to retreat into Shaymin. This way we still threaten the KO as long as he misses Hammers and Flare Grunt, so we'll just pass for now. There is the Crushing, gets Tails, Pokepuff, he's going to see a gross hand. Phew, that was close. He's loving it. Team Rocket's handiwork. Gets just the 1 heads, gets rid of a Plume. That's a bit annoying. Still have 2 more in deck though. Losing the Jolteon is fine. I'm really worried about the damage cap that we have in this deck because it's not really enough. Especially when he has things like Parallel City to lower our water output. But we do actually have the option to dig a little bit more with Shaymin before we play the Ninja Boy. Actually, I always want to play the Ninja Boy because I win. I don't know what I'm saying. I was like, wait, I could get the Plume going, but I could just win. That's always an op. That's always an out, right? Not bad. Not bad at all. Well, Lord drew badly. Hooray for me. That was a bit of a weird matchup. But that's all I have time for today, so we're going to have to leave it there. But going first is pretty good, I hear, with Vileplume. I think you're going to have to test this out for yourselves. You saw that only 1 out of the 3 games we got the turn 1. And the deck is completely different when you go second, because your opponent has a guaranteed turn to start setting themselves up in preparation for the onslaught of item locks. So yeah, test out for yourselves, guys. Today it went okay for us. That's actually the best testing I've had with this deck so far. In most other games it's not gone so well. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on this deck. Is it going to compete for the future regionals? And yeah, join the discussion down below. For now though, it has been Joe from Omnipoke, and I will see you guys next time.